There are 9 teams in the NFL this year that I think have been disappointing. And I would say they've had disappointing seasons for different reasons, right? And it's kind of rhymey and sing-songy and fun. Now, team number 1 is the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know, I mean, it is the Browns' fault that they've had a bad year, but it's the reason why the Browns have been disappointing to me. They're not terrible, but I had such high expectations of them, right? And it's because of the expectations I put on them that I look at the Browns and go, man, that's not what I expected. And, they made the playoffs last year. They won a playoff game. I believed that the Browns would build off what they did last year. I mean, going into this year, I said they might even be the most complete team in the NFL. They have weapons everywhere. I was excited about it. They had great receivers, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. I predicted the Browns would go 13-4. I was talking about maybe them winning a Super Bowl. And as it is right now, Cleveland's going to be lucky to even make it into the playoffs. And that, to me, is disappointing. I thought they'd be a dominating force. And it's clear I got ahead of myself. Injuries really threw them off. They traded away Odell Beckham Jr. And that's a big one, right? Like, Odell was one of the keys to their offense. I was excited to watch. Didn't work. They had to get rid of him. Baker, I know Baker Mayfield's been hurt, their starting quarterback. He's got a torn labrum, or partially torn labrum, in his non-throwing shoulder. But he hasn't made good decisions. He's been inaccurate. Baker's not played well. It's been disappointing. And all around, I mean, I thought the Browns were just capable of more. And I thought they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. They are not. So to me, the Browns have had a disappointing year. Disappointing team number 2, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, anytime you fire your coach after a 2-11 start, I think you qualify for a team that's had a disappointing year. But it's worse than that. They hired Urban Meyer, and he's one of the biggest train wrecks I remember in my lifetime as a head coach in any sport, including football. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm like, the amount of drama and the amount of negative stories and the amount of bad press he gave his team and the ways he hurt his team is incredible to me. It's actually kind of maybe an amazing accomplishment. Was he trying to get fired? A lot of people kind of say he was trying to get fired. The Jaguars don't want to pay him out the rest of his contract. So we'll see if, I don't think he did sabotage himself. I think he's just, I mean, he has kind of this tyrannical ruling style that didn't work. And I did not expect the Jaguars to be good. Let's be clear. Like, they were the team with the number 1 overall pick last year. They're a bad football team. But Urban Meyer had a ton of drama. He could not connect. He's a college coach who really struggled to connect with NFL athletes and relate to them and their way. Again, I think it's because he approaches with this tyrannical dictator style where he's like, my way or the highway. I mean, one of the most damning things about him is, and I don't think I even talked about it enough as I could have when he got fired, is there's that story where he kicked the kicker, Josh Lambo. What's interesting to me is the amount of arrogance you have to kick another human being and not expect them to retaliate. Urban Meyer knew if the player kicks me, he's out. But I can kick him anytime I want. That's a perfect example of how he just doesn't view things the right way. I think the coach at any level, but especially not in the NFL where guys are making millions of dollars as well and have more power. In college, unfortunately, you can demean your players and get away with it. In the NFL, they're like, no. And I really like is that even in college now we're seeing that style just isn't working and those jobs are getting few and far between. Now, drama aside, and calling it just drama is generous. What I think Urban Meyer had to do, and what he failed at doing, which was the number 1 most important thing for him to do this year, he needed to show progress from game number 1 to game number 17. Throughout the course of the year, the Jaguars had to get a little bit better. And instead, it actually felt like they kept taking steps backwards. Like, they got worse as the year went on. And Urban built this negative environment. He threatened people. He couldn't handle losing at all. Like, even in the preseason, he was scorching mad at his assistant coaches. And I'll never understand the constant berating of his assistants when he hired them. You can't hire people and then be angry that they are who they are. And it's also weird. Like, he took over the Jaguars. What did he expect? Did he think he was going to step into the league and go 17-0 and have a great year? I don't know. It's a delusion and weird, and Urban seems like a terrible person. But let's be clear. The reason why the Jaguars have had a disappointing year, first and foremost, is their now former, thank God he's gone, former head coach, Urban Meyer. Number 3, the Raiders did not start the year in a disappointing way at all. They started 3-0, and they were dominating. I remember Derek Carr was on pace to break like every record in NFL history passing, and then somebody released John Gruden's emails. He resigned, so he was gone. Then Henry Ruggs III, their former first-round pick, young star receiver who was playing very well. To put it, I don't know if this is too blunt, he killed someone drunk driving, which is horrible. He's probably going to go to jail for a long time. So he's gone. And then Damon Arnett, another one of their first-round picks, posted a video of himself threatening somebody with and I got to be careful of my words to not get demonetized, a weapon that shoots small pieces of metal very quickly. He was threatening someone with one of those. And so he's gone as well. And I'm not excited about that. I probably like it. I get excited about it. He's gone. I'm not striking someone out. This is real life stuff. This is sad. This is not fun. And it's really simple. In a matter of days, all 3 were gone. And the Raiders' season got totally derailed, and it's horrible. It's not good. And they're in a weird spot because as a franchise, like, they have some good stuff going on. They've got, well, mostly the best thing they have is a good quarterback, Derek Carr, in my opinion. But they're going to have to get a new head coach, seems like, and losing your first-round picks, you have to fill those positions again, and it's a lot of progress lost. So the rebuild, and people are talking about a rebuild, is going to be really, really brutal in Vegas, and it's been a disappointing year, no matter how you quantify it, for the Raiders. Number 4, the Carolina Panthers have been disappointing, and I remember when they traded for Sam Darnold, the Jets' young quarterback, and I thought, oh boy, they found a franchise quarterback, and they did it on le cheap. They traded only a second-round pick for what I thought was going to be a franchise quarterback, Sam Darnold, and I was like, hey, well done. And then Carolina actually started 3-0. And I'm sitting there like, dude, this is awesome. I like Matt Rule. I want Sam Darnold to work. This is fantastic. And now they're 5-8. Sam Darnold has 7 touchdowns and 11 interceptions on the year in only 9 games. He got hurt. They brought in Cam Newton again. They still aren't winning. They did beat Arizona. It was a surprise in Cam. It was his first game. He didn't start, but he played a lot and looked really well. I mean, that was like a glimmer of hope against Arizona on the road. And then it's been bad ever since then again. And they actually fired their, quote, genius young offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. And now people are even, taking aim at the Panthers head coach, Matt Rule, as well. And I'm just not going to lie to you. I'm sad. I think if I had to pick 2 teams in the NFL to be a fan of, because I can't pick just one, it would be the Colts and Carolina. I like both teams a lot. I like the way they do stuff. I like what's going on. And I still want to say I believe in Matt Rule. It's getting harder. And I just so much believed in what they were doing. I believed in Sam Darnold. I believed in Joe Brady. I was like, yes, this is awesome. A 3-0, it's working. And I really wanted things to work in Carolina. They haven't. And I'm not going to lie. I am sad about it. Number 5, bit of a weird one to include the Lions in a list of teams that have had a disappointing year. Remember, they're 1-11-1, right? No one expects Detroit to win. Now, let's be clear about that. But I would call their year disappointing because they've had so many weird and heartbreaking losses. I mean, they lost to Baltimore and Minnesota and Chicago, all on, game-winning kicks on a last-second field goal. And the Ravens kick, by the way, was the longest in NFL history. How about that? Of course, right? Like, what a way to lose. That sucks. They tied Pittsburgh. By the way, when Big Ben wasn't playing, like, that was a great opportunity. They still didn't win. They lost to Cleveland by 3. Week 1, they actually almost came back against the 49ers. They lost that game by 8. They actually led Green Bay 17-14 at halftime. Like, they were leading the Packers at halftime, didn't score any points in the second half, lost 35-17, and you're like, of course, Detroit. So Detroit, 1-11-1, that could easily have been, 6-7? 5-8. Like, they've lost a lot of games they could have won and missed a lot of opportunities. And I just, it's not because the Lions are bad that they're disappointing. It's the fact that they almost won all these games that they still lost. That's what's been disappointing about Detroit this year. Number 6, the Miami Dolphins. I would say they had a disappointing start. The Dolphins started the year 1-7. Since then, they've actually won 5 in a row. If they beat the Jets during Week 15, they will have climbed all the way back to 7-7, which is a very, very impressive feat. Basically, if you start the year 1-7, your year is over. You got no hope. And the fact that they're even in the running, like they're even in the playoff race at all, is really unbelievable. It's a testament to what they're doing. And recently, the Dolphins have played much more like I expected they would all year. Tua is showing progress. Their defense has been good. But I want to not get confused. Despite the wins recently, a 1-7 start is a massive failure in Miami. And I predicted they would go 11-6. They actually might, if they win out, if somehow they can win every game between now and the end of the year, Miami would go 10-7, which is basically one game worse than I predicted. So there's still a possibility it actually ends up getting pretty close to my prediction. But you can't start the year 1-7. That's just not cool. You're not appropriate. Shouldn't happen. And I've been disappointed for a while, partially because I thought Tua had a really slow start. It took him a while to get going and start playing well. So, yeah, I would think a Miami Dolphins fan would agree. Their year has been disappointing. Number 7, the Jets are bad, right? Like, and that's disappointing, but also expected, right? The Jets, I knew they would be bad. I'm sure their fan base knew they would be bad. That's not funny. I mean, a little bit it is. But the one thing I had expectations for with the Jets this year, I really thought their young rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson, would be like the lone bright spot during a losing season. It hasn't happened that way. I mean, he almost lost his job to Mike White. Mike White has had a better game this year than Zach Wilson's had all year. It's not been good. And it's fine that Zach Wilson has been bad. Like, he's a rookie. He's learning. I think a lot of people are ready to get rid of the kid already. I'm like, come on, guys, let's relax. I'll do a film analysis on him and we'll talk about what's going wrong. But the more he plays, the more he's collecting film to look at in the offseason and learn from his mistakes. And I don't think you can give up on a talented kid like Zach Wilson after just 1 year. But he does have 6 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, and it's certainly not going the way I thought it would. I thought it wouldn't be a moment where we're in Week 15 going, hey, people want to get rid of him. I thought we'd be going, oh, thank goodness the Jets found their starting quarterback. I think everyone felt that way. So, again, he's a rookie. I have patience. The dude is learning. And he had one good game against Tennessee, but that's it. And otherwise, I've been waiting. I'm like, hey, why was this guy the number 2 overall pick? Why was I so excited about Zach Wilson? Where's the play we saw in college? And a lot of people are going to say he played at BYU, but no, he had NFL habits at BYU, and we're not seeing them in the NFL. And I just would be lying to you if I said I wasn't disappointed in the way that Zach Wilson has played this year. It's been a disappointment, and it's not fun. Okay, number 8 and 9, the final 2 teams on the list. They're kind of almost honorable mentions. So number 8 is Seattle. I predicted Seattle would go 6-11 this year. I expected them to be bad, but I also have no doubt that their fan base is disappointed. Russell Wilson got hurt. He missed some games, and I think their fan base in Seattle is realizing that outside of Russ, there isn't much good going on that roster. There's a couple, like they have a couple aging veterans and key players, but it's not enough to win. They're not a good football team. They have a couple solid players that aren't enough to bolster the bad roster around them. And what's even worse, they don't even have their first round pick. Right? Like they might, it's unlikely, but possible that Seattle's going to earn a top 5 pick, but they actually traded it away to the Jets in return for Jamal Adams, who hasn't helped them win. I don't know, man. I want to say this. It's been a disappointing year for Seattle. I saw it coming. I expected that. Call me a prophet, right? I thought they were going to be terrible this year. And they might be, they're 6-8 right now, 5-8 right now. They could finish better than 6-11. But the point remains the same. They're not a good football team, and they're losing a lot. And I saw it coming, but I want to say I feel bad for Seattle. I understand why you guys are disappointed, and I think this is why it's so important when your team shows signs of losing and little. I think the signs for years were there with Seattle, where they were getting worse and worse, but their fan base, like diehard supporters, and being a diehard supporter is great, but you have to, when your team shows weaknesses and cracks and problems, you have to call them out, because if they don't get addressed, you end up with a bad football team. And I think unaddressed problems that the fan base has ignored for years and let slide because, well, we love our team, and that's great, but you have to be realistic and I think objective about your team too. And if I were a fan of Seattle, I would have been furious years ago. Why are we not building Russell Wilson a great offensive line? Why are we not supporting our quarterback more? Why are we not drafting better receivers for him? There's all kinds of stuff I would have been really frustrated about for years in Seattle. I think their fan base let slide. And I think part of loving something is wanting what's best for it. And I think the blind loyalty to Seattle recently and their football team really hurt them because no one is keeping them accountable and asking for better moves from their front office. Okay, team number 9, the Colts. Now, how do you call the Colts disappointing? I think here's how. Despite the fact that it looks like they're going to make the playoffs and Carson Wentz, their new quarterback, has been awesome, Indy started the year 1-4. And I know it sucked because it's clear that they're better than that. Like, Indy was better than their 1-4 start. And it was so frustrating, right? They played a lot of tough teams early on, playoff teams, most likely. And Indy had a ton of injuries that really held them back. But at this point, here's why they're disappointing. At this point in the year, I expected Indy to be in the driver's seat. And now it looks like they're a team that's going to be barely making it into the playoffs with a wild card spot, just kind of hoping they get in. And the year isn't over. But the way the Colts started the year on the wrong foot and put them so far behind where they needed to be and having to climb back into a 500 record and climb back into having a positive season, I thought they'd be front runners from the beginning early on, and they haven't been. It took them a while to climb back, and that, to me, is the definition of a disappointing season. I mean, it was a bad start that has been, it's pretty clear they were much better than that. So was it a disappointing year? Not entirely, I guess. Maybe I said its definition. I probably should have said it was the definition of a disappointing start to the year, which I know they're better than that. And I would call the Colts my number 9 most disappointing team of the year. I mean, I was talking, when they traded for Carson Wentz, go listen to what I said. I'm like, they're a Super Bowl team. I was like, I think Carson elevates them so far, and I think Carson has. I think it's a team around him that got hurt and wasn't good enough. And so it's sad. Those are my 9 disappointing teams this year in the NFL. Someone write in, let me know, what are your disappointing teams? I probably could have included, well, there was one team I slashed off this list. It felt unfair. I mean, if your team is bad or disappointing, but even if your team, I think that's what I like about this list, is that even if your team makes it into the playoffs, like maybe Cleveland does, maybe the Colts do, it can still be a year that's not as good as you expected. So let me know, what teams do you think about a disappointing year this year in the NFL?